The Animal Crossing series has its fair share of odd mysteries that have perplexed people for years now. If you've been following along on this channel, you'll know that very recently we covered the strange appearance of aliens across the different games, and what it could possibly mean. For a game as cute as Animal Crossing, there certainly is a lot of creepy stuff, man. Animal Crossing New Horizons only amplifies everything that was present in the past, and it really got me thinking about the what-if possibilities out there. So I hope you're ready for another deep dive into the strange oddities that Animal Crossing offers, because honestly, there's still so much to talk about in regards to these alien invaders. As players continue to play more and more, new things have begun to surface. The first video was truly only the tip of the iceberg. So let's head out into the void once again, searching for those who watch us from the darkness. So last we left off, we were staring at a television set at 3:33 in the morning. Kinda creepy since this number is only half the mark of the beast. And when we decide to stare into the static that overtakes our television screens at this odd hour in the night, we are left with a startling discovery. An alien broadcast takes place, catching us off guard as it begins to speak to us in a language we cannot understand. Immediately after this, the television flashes to show a UFO while some eerie music begins to play. Just for the sake of having a refresher for what it sounds like, go ahead and give it a listen. Pretty odd, right? Now, I'm going to come back to this audio in a bit, but first I want to add something that I did not document last time. And that's the inclusion of an actual UFO in Animal Crossing New Horizons. I honestly had no idea this even existed when I made my first video, simply because it's not something you can just readily come across. It's pretty small in scale, but it does match up with the UFO we see on the television. When you get near the UFO, it actually sends out a tiny alien as well, alongside playing that creepy music that the TV does. Now, this UFO in particular is actually created by the player, by one of Celeste's DIY recipes. She has a whole wide variety of space-themed models that you can craft alongside Zodiac-themed furniture. But these miniatures are neat because I imagine they reflect the real-life counterparts of a lot of equipment from space. This isn't the first time this appears either, as the UFO has appeared in other games as well. Now, obviously, this is just a rare piece of furniture that is honestly really cool, but its inclusion and mock-up goes hand in hand with the creepy messages we've encountered so far. I think it's safe to say that this is truly what the UFOs do look like from a reference perspective, but it's with this UFO's physical rendition that sort of brings me back to our old compadre who used to fly them, Gulliver. When I first encountered Gulliver in New Horizons, I didn't really think a whole lot of it. Most of my Gulliver experience was actually tied to the original Animal Crossing, so finding him washed up on shore again was certainly a nice throwback. But honestly, I probably should have been paying more attention to him, because it almost seems like his role in this version of the game is more so a victim than an actual pilot. Mind you, Gulliver has always been one to tell tall tales. Like I mentioned in my last video, he tends to lie and stretch the truth when it comes to things he's describing, so that makes it hard to believe him. But that doesn't mean everything he says is untrue. In the film adaptation, he certainly lies a bit about where he comes from, but he tells the truth about hitting something in the sky. And that something ended up being an alien spacecraft, which is kind of what makes Gulliver's role in New Horizons a bit more scary. Honestly, I'm thinking this dude is straight up getting abducted by aliens. When he wakes up, he has trouble remembering things and he doesn't realize where he's at. But one key thing he says that I overlooked the first time was how he talks about how hallucinations tend to sneak up on him. Not knowing what happened to you after waking up in a random place and then claiming that you've been having constant hallucinations sounds like all the ingredients to an alien abduction. I also heard that Gulliver even mentions UFOs when you find him on the beach sometimes. I haven't been able to encounter this dialogue myself in New Horizons yet, but the fact that Gulliver has spent his entire life waking up, not knowing what exactly happened to him, only to find himself in the same situation over and over again, it's incredibly sad. It's like one piece of the puzzle is missing, and without it he never questions where he's going back to or how he's going to repeat over and over again. I strongly believe Gulliver has been getting abducted by aliens his entire life, so much so that the experiences he can't remember are making him think he's an alien himself. It's just super sad, honestly. His mind is so cloudy that he believes everything is fine, but in reality his own life is a mystery for him. So he just waits at the water's edge to start the torture all over again. Putting Gulliver aside, there's still a few unanswered questions though. Mainly this broadcast and what it actually means. So what's interesting is that if we slow it down, or even reverse the audio, the speech patterns become a bit more recognizable. Still completely incoherent, but certain words seem to repeat. Listen to this small snippet at 50% speed. And now listen to that same clip in reverse. I'm going to be honest, decoding audio like this is really difficult, and ultimately, the message itself is probably nothing significant. I think living in a world where ARGs are prevalent, and people are constantly combing through game audio files to solve puzzles, can also sometimes create a puzzle that doesn't exist. Not saying this is the case with this, but even if I wanted to figure out this audio, there's a high chance it's not even in English. So the words I'd be hearing wouldn't even register with my ears. But just because we can't decode the message, doesn't mean we can't figure out what it ultimately means. Because this broadcast can only be one of three things from a lore perspective. The first being it's simply a hoax, which is the most boring of all the takes. The second take is it basically being a declaration to the world that the aliens exist. But even that seems weird. If this was the case, why would you broadcast it in the dead of night when no one can hear it? If you're watching everyone from the skies above, surely you would know by now when people are awake and when people are sleeping. But that's what leads us to the third and final take. This message isn't meant for everyone. It's only meant for people who know when to listen. And that's when things get a bit creepy. So the only reason why someone would broadcast a message at 3:33 a.m. would be because they are trying to broadcast it when most people aren't around. I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat for a second here, so sit tight. I promise I'm not going to go all ancient aliens on you guys, but hear me out from a game lore perspective. These aliens, despite how sophisticated they are probably not going to be broadcasting messages out to people's smartphones. They're going to be basing their technology output on what they believe we currently use. So that theory you sometimes hear about how if aliens showed up, they'd be thinking the technology of the decades past was still the tech of today due to the signals we sent into space, yada yada, that applies here. Which is why it sort of makes sense that the television is where we still encounter them. Everyone on this island is using satellite television, as it's a deserted island in the middle of the ocean. So replacing that signal with your creepy alien midnight message is feasible. Because no one besides our character is freaking out over this message, it's safe to assume that no one else hears it. But that means there are people who are intentionally hearing it. And that means the aliens are already integrated with society. Yeah, my tinfoil hat just grew into a tinfoil tower. But all of this kind of checks out weirdly. Now I'm not saying Zipper is an alien, but he's an alien. But in all seriousness, this makes you think about who are the aliens in this world. For starters, you could assume our player was an alien. They seem to be one of the few humans in this world, and they certainly don't fit in with everyone else. Besides, true human representation does exist. From anatomy figures and skeletons, to spacesuits, to even modern art. Unmentionables included. We can see the scale and the layout of these things, and it's very clear they're not based on us. Obviously, they're designed this way so that the actual person playing the game resonates and relates to them. So the fact that our face doesn't reflect other human faces is a toss-up. I'll let you decide on what you think, so let me know in the comments below. But let's focus on the other side of the spectrum. The villagers. Because there are some pretty notable bizarre villagers we can encounter in some of the games. Like for example, villagers that are just full-on robots, like Ribbit and Sprocket. It's very strange. It's also easy to just write off these robots as the aliens' way of integrating into society. But there's someone else that sort of points me in a different direction. We know the aliens are shapeshifters, or at least in the movie they were, but there's actually a character who's a shapeshifter themselves. By this point, I'm sure you're all familiar with Blanca, a white cat who our character can draw a face on. They appear in a ton of the games and are often dubbed the Mysterious Cat. A character wandering around with no face is truly bizarre, but it's this cat's transformative ability that makes them alien potential. On April 1st, Blanca is capable of shapeshifting into other villagers in town and causing all sorts of mischief. They become an exact copy of the villager, and can do this to multiple villagers. Blanca also appears randomly and is someone we're told about in fortunes. So with this in mind, and seeing how the aliens hypothetically can shapeshift like we've seen before, could Blanca possibly be an alien of some kind? There are other theories going around that Blanca could also be a spirit similar to Jack, but even Jack gives me alien vibes. Or maybe it's that Goosebumps episode I watched as a kid, where the jack-o'-lantern wearing individuals turned out to be shape-shifting aliens who can mimic anyone's appearance and voice. Also, they ate people, so there's that. But if aliens are broadcasting out to certain individuals who know to listen for the call, and those individuals are potentially shapeshifters themselves, it's kind of creepy because honestly, anyone we encounter could not be their true self. It's overthinking it a lot, but anytime aliens and shapeshifting is involved, you can kind of throw everything you know out the window. The worst part is, if Gulliver wasn't crazy or perceived as a liar, then maybe people in the newer games would actually listen to his strange tales and take heed. But for now, all we know is that every Saturday, the aliens make contact with their hidden spies, and our player just happened to be the first one to intercept one of these messages. Or, you know, it's just an Easter egg. But either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, so please share your thoughts in the comments below right now. And with that, thanks for tuning in for another creepy analysis, and until my next video, cheers.